Everybody Hates Rand is a Wheel of Time podcast that will contain spoilers for all 14 books. So if you're anti-spoiler, stop this, read all 14 books, and come back. We'll be here, waiting.
Our title is a joke and is meant to be taken as such. Everybody in this context refers to us and our cats. You are free to feel however you want about Rand. He's a fictional character. Please don't DM us.
The world is a mess, Dark One stretching out his hand. The dragon's reborn, the fire's been fanned, but everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand.
One of the things I enjoy about this book, and I'll admit there's not many, is that Rand and Moridin have a lot more sexual tension than Rand and any of his girlfriends.
Dude.
I know.
There's a moment when Rand's like, we're the same height, and I'm like, oh, are you?
Perfect for kissing.
What a fascinating thing to know about your mortal enemy.
Interesting. Enemies to lovers. Speaking of enemies to lovers.
Yeah, it really does feel like they're gonna just start kissing with tongue at any moment.
Yeah, they're like, so we meet again in the world of dreams. And you're like, okay, to do what?
Yeah, why?
Imagine if it was just Rand appeared in World of Dreams like he did in his post-coital days after fucking Avienda, which the narrative goes out of its way to assure us that they have been having marathon level sex.
Herculean, in fact.
Like, Avienda's finally letting me sleep. She's insatiable, essentially. And I'm like, if I could never hear about any of this ever again, that would be ideal. Anyway, what if he'd appeared and just been on that fucking dominatrix wheel that Lanfear had set up in season 2 of Wheelie Time.
Yeah, the TV show. One thing the Wheel of Time TV show is doing really well is capturing that all the Forsaken just have like a psychosexual obsession with 1, Rand, and 2, each other.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that scene, especially where Matt is talking to Ishmael and he's like, is this like a murder thing or a sex thing?
That's the vibes. That's the vibes.
Perfect. Yeah. They really nailed that.
Yeah, and it's so sad because Robert Jordan had so many chances to lean into that and didn't. Like, the vibes the Forsaken bring when they're together are generally so rancid. And it's like, we could have taken that in a rancid way of like, these are all coworkers who hate each other, but also have all fucked in the same orgy when they were drunk on a work trip.
Sure.
Like, we could have had that, but instead it was just like people making petty comments about each other's appearances like everyone does in Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
Like, I think the Forsaken scenes would have been so much more refreshing if every other person in the book wasn't also kind of like that.
Yeah.
When they're with people.
Yeah, our villains don't feel particularly nasty in the Wheel of Time books because they're behaving just like how everyone behaves, which is sort of a baseline level of nasty to other.
Like, I want Ishmael to be king bitch, not just sort of a bitch in a world of bitches.
Yeah, he absolutely...
Who's currently bitchless.
And he doesn't start kissing Rand on the mouth
soon. You're losing opportunities like crazy.
Rand's already got 3 girlfriends in the roster.
Yeah.
He doesn't have many slots left. He's filling out his whole basketball team.
The idea that you, in your polyamorous relationship, decide to construct it like a sports team. You're the point guard.
You're the...
Oh wait, pitcher and catcher are already sports analogies for top and bottom.
Yeah, which is really annoying.
How dare they?
Anyway, yes, Rand and Moridin. Rand/Moridin. Rand X Moridin.
Yeah, where's the fanfics? This is Everybody Hates Rand, your friendly neighborhood Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Emily Jushaw.
And I am Sally Goodger.
And there's not too much happening in these 2 chapters. We might have a reasonable length episode for once. But I had to, we couldn't read 3 chapters because the next chapter coming up is where we will embark upon people will finally start actually meeting to talk about.
Yeah. Talking about the last battle?
to talk about the last battle and breaking the seals on the Dark One's prison or whatever, and that's like enough of a subplot that we couldn't break away from the other stuff. So essentially all we're getting in these 2 chapters is an extension of the Black Tower subplot, vacillating between Andrel and Pavara's viewpoints, and we get 2 Rand points of view. And the first Rand point of view is not substantive in any way. It's just Aviendha arriving at his tent and them being like, so, we sex now?
Yeah, they act like they've never fucked before, which is very annoying considering it was quite an event.
Oh, it was
the first time it happened.
An event, yeah.
And they're both just like I get it, lots have happened, and you can be sort of awkward and silly about sex whenever you want to, no matter your past experiences, but there's just I don't understand, it's just a little silly, but...
Yeah, their awkwardness is compounded by the fact that Rand knows that Aviendha, literally 5 minutes ago was talking to Min and Elaine.
Yeah.
Which, the whole, dynamic between the 4 of them is mostly annoying at this point because Rand seems to be the only one who hasn't, fully got on board with it.
Mm-hmm.
The women have been over it for books now. They've just been kind of yeah, we have accepted that it's going to be the 3 of us and him.
Yep.
And so we, the readers, have more or less accepted that. But Rand's the only one who's still kind of, flagellating himself about it and being I'm such a lecher, I'm so gross, I'm morally bankrupt, everything bad should happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
And we're it's so interesting that you have this shame complex about all of it, considering that the women involved, of course, have all given their consent. Not that women's agency means anything to Rand.
Yeah, seriously.
But I was thinking about how no one is ever, rude to Rand about this.
Yeah.
He very transparently is in a relationship with 3 women at once.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like King Darlin is ever so...
Whore.
Yeah. Hey, slut. King slut.
Yeah, come on.
What?
Yeah. That's a really good point. It makes you wonder, obviously there's a lot of purity culture built into the Wheel of Time, so you understand where it's coming from with Rand, but it is, at this point, just something he is self-enforcing.
Yeah, I think we do occasionally get other characters' points of view, Nynaeve will say in her own head, that Rand won't make an honest woman out of any of them.
Mm-hmm.
He's such a whore.
Yeah.
They won't make an honest man out of him.
Yeah. My friend, this skank over here with his 3 girlfriends.
The fucking skank dragon, Frankenskank. That's a line from Beastly, and I'm sorry I just quoted it, but I just watched the Jenny Nicholson video.
Beastly?
Why
do I know this? What is this?
It's a movie. It's a very bad movie. Alex Pettyfer.
Oh, yep, I'm here. I'm there. I'm present.
Yeah.
Fascinating that they would go with Frankenskank instead of Skankenstein, which is
That's
just...
exactly what Devin said. You guys are on the same wavelength.
I just think it's, that was... Skankenstein is pretty low-hanging fruit.
That's what he said. He's like Skankenstein was right there. This, to be clear, was not us watching the movie. It was just us watching.
Why would you watch
movie
Beastly?
Where Jenny Nicholson was constantly sliding that scene in there. Anyway, I have no idea where Frankenskank came from. Oh, that's what they're calling.
Yeah, we're just making fun of Rand. Yeah, it is also, again, we're in book 14. It's time for these plots to start coming to an end. So I would like Rand to just get on board with the fact that everyone involved seems okay with it. However, on the other end, it is, again, just a very frustrating example of polygamy, where, there's the sort of implication, and from what we got from Elaine in the last point of view, that all women have agreed that tonight Aviendha will go have sex with him, which is kind of Rand specifically says, will I ever get to choose who I have sex with, basically, and Aviendha's nor. which is weird.
Avienda's like, we'll be making those decisions. And the vibe I get is that the authors are trying to be like, look, they have power in the relationship. This isn't some exploitative thing where it's a man who gets a harem of women. They get to exert agency within the relationship. But it still feels icky.
Yeah.
And that's partly because no single entity in a relationship should one-sidedly get to decide who has sex with who and when.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that's not fair to Rand either.
Yeah.
But also, it is very much Rand's personal harem of women, and we all know that.
Yeah.
The only people at this point who aren't on board are Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson, which is ironic.
Yeah, they're very obviously like I didn't write that, looking the other way. And it's like, you did write that, so
own it.
Own it and be intentional about it, I guess.
Yeah. There's no way for any of us, any modern readers, to just look at this and be like, yeah, this is fine and normal.
Yeah.
So, you know, you don't have to write your main good characters to be good people 100% of the time.
Yeah.
You just have to recognize what's going on, at least, and have some intentionality.
Yeah, like, again, all three women have consented, so for Rand to just be like, yeah, I guess I'm just gonna forever be in a relationship with three women, and it is my harem of women, and in part people are not saying anything because he is the Dragon Reborn, and it's kind of expected of people at his level, you know?
Yeah. There's also an ongoing, like, thing where I think Rand and Elaine will have sex later, maybe at some point.
Girl, when? Get on the fields. My God.
Okay.
What are they doing? The last battle is happening. Stop fucking. Stop it.
She's already pregnant.
Yeah, what are you doing?
I mean, this sex scene is almost explicitly, like, transparently so Avienda can get pregnant with her quadruplets as foreseen in her visions, you know?
Ew, what is happening?
Because there's limited time available. Like, Avienda and Rand are talking.
This sex scene.
Yeah,
I thought you meent the Elaine sex scene. I was like, is magic involved somehow?
No, this sex scene.
Yeah, this sex scene is just for Avienda.
Because we have limited time here, and it's the elephant in the room that feels like it's the elephant in the book, but not in the actual room that Rand and Avienda are inhabiting, because neither of them seems to be thinking about it. That Rand is supposed to die.
Yeah.
And even if, like, Rand has some sort, like, if any normal partner in a relationship with this guy who's prophesied to go out would be like, so we should probably talk about that.
Yeah.
Like, how confident are you of getting out of that? Mm-hmm. What are the expectations here? What should my expectations be here? Can I do anything? You know?
Yeah.
But instead they're just like, let's fuck like it's the end of the world. And it's like, hey guys.
And that is fine. I don't want to sound like a naysayer. If Elaine and Rand want to have sex at the apocalypse or whatever, who am I to say no? I do think you could be doing more productive things, but again, not my business.
Yeah, for sure.
I just seriously don't know how we have time for that. Like, can you people please? Whatever. But I do get it. There's this, like, sense of, there's always, you know, sex and death are always sort of thrown together. The idea that, you know, live while you can. So I get it, but, like, yeah, also Avienda was supposed to come in here and do something with Rand to make him not fuck the ale over, and now she's just snoozing. So, like,
yeah, we'll get to that.
Are you gonna do your assigned task?
She will wake up and talk to him about it, I guess, in the next chapter, but it is very weird.
Couldn't have done that first.
Yeah, you would think that would be the priority. For real. She's just so horny.
Yeah, well,
they all are.
They just love that man so much.
We get a tidbit about how Rand had the world's most awkward dinner with Tam.
Yeah.
Earlier in the evening, and he's like, it's because I'm the Dragon Reborn, and, like, now we have such a power differential. And I'm like, no, Rand, that's just what being an adult and having a meal with your dad is like.
Dad is like, he's gonna crack a joke, he's gonna be weird.
And you're gonna be like, okay, go to therapy, boomer. Like,
yeah, please.
Please, I'm begging you.
I'll pay for it at this point.
But Rand and Avienda fuck like crazy, I guess.
Yeah.
And then Rand wakes up in what he describes as not totally Teleron-Riyadh. And we're now getting the phrase dream shard being flung about in this book. Mm-hmm. And everyone's like, yeah, dream shards. And I'm like, what the... We've had 14 books to establish lore, and we're now learning that this is a thing.
Yeah.
This is another, bullet point on Brandon Sanderson's to-do list of explain loose ends from the series. Such as is gestured to in this little section, what the fuck was up with Rand's weird dreams of Ishmael in book 1?
Yeah.
Was that him getting yanked into Teleron-Riyadh? We've never known that to be a thing that can totally happen. Was Rand himself entering Teleron-Riyadh? What's going on? So here, and I guess, in the first half of this book, generally, we're learning, well, the Forsaken, or maybe just Ishmael, because he's the only one who seems to be doing it, can make something called a dream shard. And that's just his little elaborate set piece for a dream. And I guess he can yank people into it. Except he didn't yank Rand into this one. Rand just sort of naturally entered it, because they are so closely linked. Mm-hmm. By desire.
Yeah.
By gay love.
By gay love.
No, it's because of their whole Balefire touching thing, which,
Wink, wink.
is a metaphor for dicks touching. Yeah, for sure.
When their swords crossed, so to speak.
The layers. The layers. Yeah.
The gay stuff's always there if you read hard enough.
If you look hard enough, you'll find it.
Yeah.
Wait, Rand says some of the creepiest shit here. Elon.
His name is Elon. Yeah, Moridin's name would be Elon.
Yeah, Elon Musk.
Or Ellen.
Which is funnier? I feel like we made this joke before.
I think so too.
Elon or Ellen.
I think that's the title of one of our episodes.
Probably.
We have such good memories. Okay, sorry.
He says something about how he still wore his newest body, quote unquote, and I'm like, could we not do it like that?
Don't say it that way, please.
Can we think before we speak?
Yeah, no, not if you're Rand.
Anyway, all they do is have a little sort of back and forth about, so what are your evil plans? Nothing. So what are your good plans? Rand's like, so I hear Lanfear's out and about. Yeah. And Moridin's like, don't bring up that skink in my presence.
That Frankenskank.
That Frankenskank in my presence. And Rand's like, so what was the deal with your psychosexual obsession with me for the first 3 books of this series? And Moridin's like, none of your business.
It's my psychosexual obsession with you.
Yeah, that's between me and my therapist, Grendel.
Oh, Jesus. Grendel, the therapist, encouraging the psychosexual obsession with the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah, and Rand is like, well, I'm going to psychoanalyze you a bit here and be like, I can just tell that you have so much self-loathing and it's really destroying you, and the only reason you're still fighting for the Dark One is because it's the only way you will ever get out of this trap, essentially. Mm-hmm. You swore your soul to him, and so...
And you're like, that's boring.
Yeah.
You could consider working on yourself and overcoming that self-loathing rather than just being like, I need total annihilation of all living worlds.
Yeah. Moridin does the classic villain speech of like, all the women you love, I'm gonna murder horribly. Yeah. And to Rand's credit, for the first time in his life, he's like, nah.
Yeah.
I don't really, I get that that's just a thing villains say. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not too cut up about it. Anyway, Rand does his most weird cult leader shit yet and makes flowers bloom in this gloomy dream shard, nihilist dream shard that Moridin has conjured.
Welcome to my nihilist dream shard.
Welcome to my nihilist, welcome to the Black Parade or something.
When I was...
Rand's like, tell your master I'm coming.
Yeah.
And Moridin's like, okay. Skedaddles.
Yeah. He's like, okay, that was weird. Yeah. And it's like, the dramatic effect, again, I get what's happening here. We're going back to Rand as the sort of savior of the land, having, connection to the land, being able to, like, make flowers bloom. Mm-hmm. But his sort of, like, intimidating, it's supposed to be intimidating, but you're like, you're surrounded by flowers. Like, daisies, and being like, tell your boss I'm coming down the line. And you're like, okay, you're wearing, like, a little flower crown. And...
Yeah, it's just... Yeah, it's not terribly intimidating. It was kind of laughable. I was like,
eee.
Imagine if he'd got a little flower
Yeah, a
crown.
little flower crown, and there's like a little
Yeah,
bird
it's like
on his
intimidating
shoulder.
in the way Disney princesses
Yeah.
are intimidating. Yeah.
And you're like, hey, I get what you're trying to do here with the imagery, but Moridin has had like cool volcano eyes
Yeah.
and like
A face that was on fire.
a face that was on
sick.
fire, and that's like pretty intimidating. So like you and your like Snow White collection of forest animals is little. Like the dark one's probably like nerd.
Yeah. The nerd one's like, okay. Flower, clean and glow. Rand just started singing.
The Tangled song.
Yeah.
That'll be pretty good.
So that's what's going on with Rand. Meanwhile, back at the Black Tower. I know. There's so much of it. We see Andrel and Pavara observing this guy at like a tavern who's like, yep, Logain and Mazrim Tem have agreed that fighting's gotta stop. We gotta focus on the last battle. This is one of the guys who's been turned. Mm-hmm. So of course everyone's really wigged out by it. Essentially Andrel goes to leave and some more bad Asha'man come in and they do more or less a little, setting up for a rumble. Everyone squares up. Mm-hmm. Andrel almost loses his temper and is like ready to try and kill these guys with his extremely inadequate power. And the only thing that stops him is that he can't do anything, Then he and Pavara go to set up a weird trap for one of the Asha'man who's been turned, operating under the assumption that the old lore, whatever that is, tells you that when someone gets turned, so if you view, the dark light spectrum as, a literal spectrum on a straight line with the middle point being your gray
Totally
morality.
neutral, yeah.
Wherever you were on one side of the spectrum you will be equidistant on the other side of the
It's like
spectrum.
a mirror image.
So if you were super good, now you'll be super evil. This does beg the question, can you turn someone good? But
Ooh!
I don't think there are any Murdril equivalent
Yeah, that'd be fun. It's the
good guys. It's like the angels.
the Ogier. And you need a 13 Ogier singing
Yeah.
a beautiful song.
Honestly, that would slap.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we could have redeemed one of the Forsaken,
Yeah.
Moridin suddenly is like, now I'm the Disney princess.
Now, I'm God's most specialist favoritist boy.
Tee-hee-hee. That would have slapped, honestly.
Yeah, I'm the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah.
Now.
Sick.
Hey, Ed. I need less of this.
Sorry if you're hearing Ed grooming himself. He really goes at it really loudly.
Such a disgusting little old man.
Anyway, so the trap they've concocted is for a guy who I guess just wasn't super good to begin
He was
with.
just like, you're in the middle, and he's like, one click to the good.
They're like, so he'll be susceptible to bribery and intimidation.
Yeah.
Which is funny. The trap goes off, they capture him, but then a couple of bad guys they weren't expecting walk in, and luckily Pavara is very good at fighting, and Andrel also knocks them over the head with a broomstick, basically.
Yeah, and not to get too hyper realistic here, but he keeps being like, I need to make sure they don't wake up, so I hit them really hard. And I'm like, if you hit someone so hard that they don't wake up after an extended period
That's
of time,
dead.
you have killed them.
That's dead.
You don't actually hit people over the head and they go unconscious for long periods
Yeah,
of time.
I know we're all thinking, we all have accepted that that's
Yeah.
a fantasy thing that
Yeah.
just happens. But again, guys, if you get knocked out and don't wake up within a minute,
You're in a coma.
you're in a coma.
So, not to harp on the hyperrealism there, you're right. It's totally like a fantasy trope, but the whole time he was like, I just need to make sure they stay knocked out. And I'm like 3 pages from now, you guys do just straight up murder 2 dudes, so why didn't you just kill these guys?
Exactly.
I
It's
don't
like,
understand.
now we care about bodies being discovered. Yeah, these guys are so dead, but whatever. As they're lying there, dead or dying, Pavara and Andrel bond.
Yeah, they trauma dump.
Yeah, and thank God we don't have to fucking sit through it.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. That was a
We
good
got
call.
a cut. We got a chapter cut. It's like start at a story, next chapter begins, and Pavara is ending the tragic tale of her
Family being murdered.
family being murdered by dark friends. Yeah, what we're doing is hitting, and I've been thinking about this a lot since you brought it up last week, is hitting all of the classic tropes that one must fulfill for a romance. This is so Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah.
This is so classic Brandon Sanderson, who tends to deal with his characters as though character arcs and personalities are just things he can check on a box or a chart.
Yeah.
You know, a character's personality is built by having 2 pieces of background that we know about them and 3 personality traits and 2 interests, you know, voila, you've got a character.
Yeah.
And a character arc is designed by, like, ooh, one traumatic moment, this moment here, this moment here. So he's building a romance in the exact same way.
Yeah.
First, we have to get them into a telepathic bond, which, by the way, is being developed over the course of this
We'll talk about that in a second.
section. And then they have to have some time to just sit and chat, presumably because he knows if Andrel and Pavara suddenly started talking, the more 21st century of the readers would be like, oh, it's weird that they just are in love now.
Yeah.
They have to share some trauma. They have to admire things about each other. They have to spend a whole lot of time thinking about how the other one is super complicated and difficult to understand.
Yeah.
I love when Pavara goes on and on about how difficult Andrel, the
Yeah.
simplest man I've ever met,
Yeah.
is.
Like, he's got such hidden depths, and I'm like, not really. Like, his whole thing is that he's a jack of all trades with, like, an impotence problem.
Yeah, he's extremely shallow. He's a pond.
Yeah, sorry to make a dumb impotence joke. I was just thinking about that with everyone when he was in his man fight.
Yeah, no, that was very, like, impotence coded.
Yeah, and you're just like, oh, he's being, you know, emasculated.
Yeah, at one point, Pavara is like, wow, it would be really tough to make Andrel lose his temper. And I'm like, he just lost his temper for almost no reason.
Yeah.
3 pages ago.
Yeah.
After, you know, being bullied the way he has presumably been bullied for the entire time he's been at the Black Tower.
Anyway, sidebar. But yes, you're so right that we are hitting key romance highlights. You typically share your traumatic story with one another when you're, like, trapped in an inn and it's rainy and cold outside and there's nothing else you can do and they're
Next
waiting.
thing we know, there will be only one bed.
Only one bed.
And they have to share it. Yeah.
While we're waiting for this guy to come in and start the interrogation. They're like, well, we have nothing else to do, I guess, but...
We can't interrogate him. We have to wait for Amarin to come in
Yeah,
and do it.
because he's incredibly good at it, apparently. And all he does is use, like, basic cop manipulation.
Yeah.
But I guess I wouldn't be trained in basic cop man. You gotta have a...
Well, neither would Amarin,
It's
to
true.
be fair.
Amarin's what, a rich boy?
He's like, no worries. I can totally
I
do
can always... And you're like,
interrogations." I'm
what?
With what experience, bestie?
Who
Charisma.
trained you?
Like, it would have been so funny if he came in here and seduced this guy, because he's our one main... He's
gay
our one gay character.
Yeah.
Imagine what an outing that would have been. I would have been like, Brandon Sanderson, gay ally.
Brandon Sanderson, ally!
This old man walks in and is like,
Hello.
hello.
It's me. And this guy who's been sufficiently turned to the dark side,
Yeah.
well, not sufficiently, like a couple clicks turned to the dark side, is like, oh,
Oh, hoo, hoo.
I'm learning something about
I
myself.
love flattery.
Yeah.
And the charm person spell that is
Yeah.
essentially being cast here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Amarin does come in, successfully gets this guy to spill where Logain is being held in some sort of, like, structure that's being built. You know, very classic.
Yeah. And again, like, none of these are surprises to us. They're like, Mazrim Tem has a set of secret rooms. And I'm like, no way.
I'm like, oh my god, that's so crazy.
That's crazy,
Next
dog.
thing you'll tell me he has a break room for his 13
Yeah.
Murdrel. Duh.
Come on. But yeah, apparently, if you're, like, super good, like Logain is, apparently it takes a couple days to, quote-unquote, or capital T, turn you to the dark side.
Yeah,
So-
they're like, it's all about willpower, which people in fantasy love to talk about willpower as, like, one of the predominant, one of the dominant skills you can have.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can avert disaster simply by having the will
Yeah.
to do it, or that you can hold up under torture through sheer willpower. That's another example of a male fantasy.
Yeah.
Men love to think that they would not give under pressure.
Sure. Under extreme torture and horrible conditions.
Yeah, when the reality is that no one knows how they would react under those circumstances.
Yeah, so they interrogate this guy and go to rescue Logain, and We can get into all of that a little bit more. But I will say this was, like, a Black Tower sequence I didn't mind all that much. Like, there's some silly stuff, like Amarin being a master negotiator. But he's probably bribed people before. I don't know. It's, like, fine. But we're entering slightly into territory that I think Brandon Sanderson is more comfortable in, which is effectively a sort of, like, heist-like rescue mission, which is the type of...
Actual people taking action.
Yeah, like an action scene where there's some, like, plotting, and he can have set pieces and characters he's moving around the map towards a specific goal. And I think he does those really well. All of the Brandon Sanderson that I've read, once we get into the action sequence itself, like, it flows really nicely. It's fun. He's setting up all the right things for us to be, like, excited about. So it was nice to be in the Black Tower and be like, a thing is happening.
Yeah.
Brandon feels comfortable on this footing. I'm having a good time, even if we're hitting some silly stuff. And it's nice, to finally start knocking down the Mazrim plot a little bit. So... Didn't mind it.
Yeah. No complaints about them just having an action sequence where they enter this sort of abandoned building, underground tunnel / weird thing. They, of course, find a creepy room that's full of cages.
Yeah, because,
like, classic, like, villain shit.
Mazrim couldn't think of any other way to do that.
Mazrim is, and this is the thing about him that really is the sticking point, not subtle.
Yeah. From the day we've met him, every normal person has been, like, straight up evil.
So evil.
Evil.
Yeah.
He's got, you know how people say you can have gay face? He has evil face.
Yeah, so true.
He's just got evil face. You look at him and you're like,
everyone who has any power to do anything about it, Rand, is like, seems fine to me.
I want to back that up a second. Last time we did talk about how they keep talking about how Mazrim has a big nose, which is anti-Semitic rhetoric, so I should not say that he has evil face. That was a bad joke.
No, but he has an evil aura.
He has evil vibes.
That he is giving off.
Just sort of sleazy. And so they walk into this room full of cages, and everyone is like, oh my god.
What could... Yeah, if they had, like, fucking torture instruments hanging on the walls, it would have been like, what were you guys fucking expecting?
Yeah.
You know?
He's got all this medieval torture elements, like the elephant or whatever they put people in, and they light it on fire.
Yeah, you'd be like, okay.
That seems right for this guy.
I feel like I would enter this room and just start laughing. Be like, yeah.
Of course he has a room full of cages.
Of course. Mazrim has a torture dungeon.
Whatever.
Anyway, they find Logain. He's so weak. He can't do anything. Yeah. They have killed a couple of guards to get to this point, and so at some point someone discovers the guards, and now there's a commotion being raised. And we end this section with some sort of big commotion. You know, the doors, they're having to stand in front of the door holding off attackers, and then as Andrel is trying to just make a gateway, even though there's a ter'angreal that's stopping him, there seems to be some sort of, like, cave-in or an explosion. Mm-hmm. So we leave on that moderate cliffhanger of, oh no, what's happening to everyone? Our good guys in the Black Tower.
Well, I don't believe they'll kill Andrel because...
Yeah, imagine investing all of this time and effort into Andrel in the last 200 pages, and then just being like, and he beefs it.
And he fucking beefs it. That telepathic bond. Oh, the one thing I want to say about the telepathic bond is, it's an interesting enough mechanic to be like, what is the escalation of this type of magic? Mm-hmm. But it's done super awkward, like Andrel and Pavara. Andrel can seem to think complete thoughts, because of course men are better at this than women, naturally.
Thinking, yeah.
Yeah.
Rational.
Yeah. But Pavara, like, can't think a sentence. It has to be, like, choppy and weird.
Because women's minds are so labyrinthine.
Yeah.
like they're piss. What's that quote?
I know what you're talking about. What is it?
It's like there's someone always publishes the, like, worst examples of women written by men. And there was one a few years back that was like, woman character sits down to pee and has some insane comment about how it takes a minute to pee because the urine has to work its way through her fucking maze-like insides.
Yeah, but I don't know if I want to read the whole thing. Men, they were able to conjure it up immediately. That was one of their powers. That thunderous splashing as they stood lordly above the bowl. Everything about them was more direct. Their insides weren't the maze women's were for the pee to find its way through.
That's almost verbatim what's happening with Andrew and Balefire. He's so direct. And of course he has an inbuilt way of being able to shield his mind from her. Again, Bella Swan. The comparisons just keep on coming.
Keep building, baby.
And that Andrel is capable of grasping the void, that meditation technique that Rand and his dad use, and that Men Who channel seem to use as sort of their, go-to point. Pavara just doesn't have the same tools, so she is reduced to, caveman speech at him. You go door.
Yeah, and you're like, okay.
You're like, okay, we didn't need to do this.
I don't think people always think in 100% complete sentences, but nobody thinks that way.
Yeah, either, have them both on the same learning curve in terms of, first we're just getting images from each other and we're figuring this out, and, up until they're able to think full sentences or whatever. Or just don't have telepathy, because it is wild to have gender differences built even into this.
Even into telepathy.
Expected, but bizarre.
Women can't have anything.
Yeah.
Not even telepathic powers.
Sure can't. Fuck that Jean Grey,
Fuck her. Who did she think she was?
Anything else we gotta talk about?
No, I think I hit it. I think I hit it all.
Okay. This was mostly about progressing the Black Tower subplot and leaving us on a cliffhanger and having sort of the, Logain be located, because that's been so up in the air. And then we're going to leave the Black Tower for at least the next few chapters while we deal with Fields of Marilor actually setting up the last battle.
I keep referring to the last battle as, get on the fields. I realize I've said that several times in the last episode, and it's because we are at the Fields of Marilor that I keep being of course the last battle is taking place in a bunch of fields. So I apologize that I keep saying that. That's just how my brain is conceptualizing
Fields of Marilor,
where we are fighting the last battle.
I realize that this is, I did my sort of Talmines is dead psychological experiment, and I should be doing more of that with less gaslighting you.
You can gaslight me, I don't care.
But I just sort of asking you what your expectations are for,
sure.
I'm giving you a loose outline and saying, here's what's going to be happening. Who are you expecting to be there? Are you expecting anyone to show up?
At the Fields of Marilor, at the Black Tower.
You know that the next thing that's happening is the conversation, more or less, between the next big sequence. It's going to be the conversation with the world leaders about breaking the seals.
I'm guessing it will go badly at first because Egg and Rand are very determined to misunderstand each other. So I'm sure we're going to get a lot of super fun Wheel of Time, negotiation in loose phrases is what I'm expecting. I guess I've expected all of the world leaders to be there since they've all agreed to, and Brandon has gone out of his way to be like this. Even this guy is coming. In terms of other people showing up, I didn't think about that.
Do you feel anyone is missing?
And now I feel like I should feel like someone is missing.
I don't.
Maybe the Shanshin. Maybe surprise Shanshin appearance. I guess they're the big ones that are technically missing.
Yeah. In terms of representing
world leaders.
the world.
But I'm trying to think of other important characters that maybe we haven't. Maybe Matt will show up. Matt's currently.
It would be very
Moiraine,
Matt.
I guess.
It would be very like Matt to make a late entrance to the gathering of world leaders.
Party don't start.
It also hasn't been mentioned up to this point, but we ended the last book on a cliffhanger in terms of Lan leading an army.
Oh, yeah.
And we have yet to readdress that or to be with any character, aka Nynaeve, I guess, who would be thinking about it. So I remember the first time I was reading this being like, okay, is someone going to finally be like, hey, is Lan dead?
What's going on with him?
Yeah.
How's that going up there?
And I don't remember if they do address that in the next section, but that's just something to keep on the back burner as we're going forward.
Yeah, sorry, I haven't thought too much about my expectations, but I'll start to do that more.
That was great.
Maybe the ale.
Vindicate you.
Vindicate me.
Because you'll be right so often, because this book is very predictable.
I don't know. We'll see about that.
All right.
The party don't start till I walk in. It's Matt with one eye missing.
Can you imagine?
Just absolutely dirty and bloody. So rowdy.
Obviously, that would be the song playing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dirty, rowdy, one-eyed boy.
And he's like, here's Moiraine.
Here's Moiraine. Yeet.
She's probably still naked.
She's probably still naked because, that's what we want from her. Is to be naked and vulnerable. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks to Glenna McKenzie for our theme song. Thanks to our patrons on Patreon and our followers on social media.
Yeah, check out our Patreon if you haven't. We haven't given that a shout out in a while, but we do blogs on various patron voted topics. We have another podcast where we read other books that are not Wheel of Time and watch movies and talk about those in a similar format. That one's super fun, so you can go check that out if any of that interests you. Last full book we did was An Unkindness of Ghosts by Rivers Solomon, and the last movie that we did was Speed Racer?
Speed Racer, right? Yep, by the Wachowskis.
By the Wachowskis, which I actually loved.
Yeah,
so if you're curious about
good.
my obsession with Speed Racer by the Wachowskis, go forth and listen.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a sign-off?
This is more of a positive one than a, bad thing that happened, but I have a 5-year-old nephew who is playing soccer, and I got to go to his first soccer game yesterday, and there's nothing funnier on the planet than watching toddlers attempt to play soccer, the way they just move around the field as sort of one entity.
Bobby's going over there. I better follow him.
The teams kept kicking the ball in the wrong direction, so they'd be going towards their own goal, and the coaches were like, that's the wrong way. You have to turn around. One girl cried, of course, because she's 4. Her family was sitting next to me, and she runs off the field, and she's just weeping. And her parents were like, "Oh my God, what happened?" And she's like, "The ball hit my finger." And her finger's fine. Anyway, kids are the best, and I love watching him play soccer so much.
Kids are the best.
He scored 3 goals, I think, so he did a good job.
Soccer is the best thing on this planet.
Super fun. None of the jerseys fit the kids at all. They just look a mess out there, and I love it.
Forget about the World Cup. Let's just
Show
have
me
5-year-olds competing.
Put them in a big stadium. Oh my gosh.
Fucking Brazil would still dominate. But
yeah.
It would be fun.
All the Brazilian 5-year-olds are like, we're in formation.
Yeah, we know how to do this.
Yeah, other countries probably, they do start teaching them soccer at such young, fun ages.
All right, everyone. Hope you have a good week.
Bye.